Does the world of sport need a Mr. Clean to fix it? Corruption, bribery, and other allegations are recurrent in the sporting industry today. The recent allegations of widespread corruption at the world's football governing body have brought all those issues into focus, including athletics and other sporting competitions. My guest today is the former chairman of the British Athletics Association, who equally served as the chairman of the London 2012 Olympic Games. Can he deliver as he is heading to be the president of the International Association of Athletics Federation? In other words, is he going to be the Mr. Clean to fix an industry damaged by scandals? Lord Sebastien, welcome to GLOBEWATCH.
Thank you very much.
If you read the headlines from the sports industry, it is bribery, it is doping allegations, it is a well of corruption. Yet, you are heading for the presidency of the International Association of Athletics Federations. Why?
I have been in my sport for nearly 50 years. I've been a competitor. I've been very privileged to compete at an Olympic Games. I've been a politician that has worked in sport as a politician. And as you generously pointed out, I was also president of the organising committee in London. I was president of the bid. So one way or another, for the last 50 years, sport has shaped my life. I know that sport plays a central role in the lives, particularly of young people. I think that the experiences that I have shared, and I'm very lucky to be able to say I've had those experiences, leaves me in a good position to work alongside 214 member federations in pursuit of a sport that we all believe in, and in large part we still trust in, and a sport that goes on serving particularly challenged communities in a way that most sports don't really get very close to. So that's me. That's my emotional connection to the sport. I am what I am today because of my sport. And I hope that I'm in a position to
you are what you are today because of your dealings with the sports industry and athletics in particular, where you were a touring star, which of course gave you the leeway into British politics. I just want to know from you again. You just heard the words I used there: corruption, bribery, scandals. Why should somebody like you with an untainted reputation for the moment enter a world where there is fire?
Look, I don't know any area of human activity where from time to time people don't step beyond the reasonable boundaries, the boundaries that we accept. It happens in business, it happens in academia, it happens in the media, it happens in financial services industry, it happens in culture and arts. We're no different. We have had our problems, absolutely, and nobody is remotely going to deny that. But the overwhelming number of people that are involved in our sport do so and give their time free. They're volunteers, they're coaching every day of the year, they're providing opportunities for young people. And yes, the responsibility of a federation president and the governing body of a sport is to make sure that fair play is not something that we just assume is a responsibility for the athletes. Fair play has to be a concept that runs right the way through the sport, from the Olympic stadium to the grass track, from the federation president to the volunteer. And yes, good leadership, good presidency is about dealing with those issues. But I don't accept that the sport is corrupt from top to bottom. Of course it isn't. I don't accept that any more than I think that all politicians are corrupt, or all businessmen are corrupt, or all academics are corrupt, or all people in the media are corrupt. We have to have some proportionality here. But yes, you're quite right. The headlines in the last few months have been disfiguring headlines for sport, and for those of us who believe in the power of sport to impact and imprint good values on young people. That doesn't make our sport rotten from top to bottom, but it does, you're right, you're absolutely right, it does pose us.
You have used the word young people repeatedly, and you're heading for one of the biggest components of the International Olympics movement, athletics. What will be your plan of action?
We have to be honest here. We haven't captured the imagination of young people in the way that we need to generate the next inspiring group of athletes that will become the role models for
like Lord Go.
Well, you say that, but you know that's
like Mo Farah.
That's very generous of you, but I've now been retired 25 years.
Absolutely.
But it's really important that young people feel engaged with our sport. And young people see the world now very differently from the way that I do. I have 4 children, they're all under the age of 23. The way they amass their information, the way they view the world, they don't see sport as simply a sport. They look at sport and see how does it fit into the world they live in. And the world they live in is a world where young people are very anti-discriminatory. They don't like discrimination. They like fair play. They are concerned about the world they live in. They're concerned about global warming. They're concerned about environmental damage. They are concerned about racism and sexism and things that actually matter to them. So as sports administrators, if we are to attract more young people into our sport, we have to appear not just as a sport, but we have to appear as people and as organisations that they have some emotional connection to. And that's why I think we have to understand a great deal more about the world that young people live in, their challenges, their concerns, their ambitions, their motivations.
One of the issues you will be tackling if elected, and even if you are not elected because you have been involved in this business for so many years, is that of doping. Last year, I watched you with Stephen Saka on Hard Talk on BBC, and you told him that lifetime ban on doping is, quote, unsustainable, end of quote. Do you still hold such views today?
Yes, I do. And I will be open with you. I am instinctively drawn to a lifetime ban.
Why?
Because I think if athletes step out, you know, there is no surprise about this anymore. Athletes know when they're cheating. We have education programs that are costing our federations and the IAAF millions of dollars a year. We have testing programs, we have rules that are very, very clear. So you have to assume that if an athlete is still ignoring those directives, those rules, those efforts to educate, then they're doing it deliberately. And if they're choosing to do it deliberately, then I think the number one responsibility of a federation is not just to weed out the cheats, but it is to protect the thousands of athletes every year that train twice a day, that devote half their young lives to the pursuit of excellence in track and field. It's for us to protect them from the cheats. What I do concede is legally, I think it would be very difficult now to push for a lifetime ban. The IAAF, and I was very instrumental in making the change so that WADA now bans athletes for 4 years, not just 2 years. 2 years was never enough. It never disrupted a career enough. But I also accept that legally we now live in a world where that is probably unsustainable, and there would be large legal challenges which federations would probably lose.
Let me just read some of your achievements. In 1979, you set 3 records in 41 days. You were a double champion in 1980 and 1984 in the 1,500 meters and whatsoever. When you look at young athletes today in the business of the athletics, how do you look at your own success story and square them with theirs?
My training background, my racing background, my family background was very ordinary. I went to a state school. I joined an athletics club. My coaches were volunteers. My father was my coach. And everything I achieved was done because I had people around me in a federation.
I should add that you have 12 records.
Yes, and that was achieved. But you tend to forget, of course, that although I broke my world records in 1979, I joined an athletics club in 1968. So that was an 11-year journey from the first moment that I joined an athletics.
Do you have the impression that young athletes today are in a rush?
Are
in a rush, that they don't have enough time for preparation?
No, I think that the world is different. When I decided to take up athletics, I did so because I watched the Mexico Olympic Games on television, the games where the world suddenly realised the extraordinary talent of people like Kipchoge Keino from Kenya, extraordinary competitors like David Hemery in my own country, the great American sprinters. But I also got engaged because there were 2 athletes in my city that won medals. I was brought up in the city of Sheffield, in the northern industrial town in England. And that's what inspired me to join the athletics club. So I don't think the motivation today is any different from the motivation that I had. What I do concede now is that there are many, many more distractions.
Sure.
You know, when I was coming through, there were only 2 television channels.
Now there are countless.
Now there are countless, and there are iPads and phones and screen-based activity that simply wasn't there.
One of the areas you equally be tackling will be that of security during competitions. Yeah. You know of the Boston massacre of the Zuka Zanayev.
Yes.
What plan do you have in terms of security if you are elected to make athletic competitions safer?
Well, remember, I was president of an organising committee for 7 years in London, delivering a game.
Of course, you know that at the end of the day, G4 had to somehow give you a kind of embarrassment.
Security is absolutely central. Security is absolutely central when you are delivering a championships. But you need to be proportionate about it. You don't want people coming to your city or your championships feeling that they're coming to a police state. You want them coming feeling that they're going to have a good time, that they're going to be engaged, but they're going to be safe. So that is the proportionality. The answer I give you is a very simple one. Nobody in my position would discuss security plans. We need to make sure our events are as safe as they possibly can be. That is not the job of the IAAF. The IAAF has to work and can only work alongside intelligence services and governments and ministries of interior and also local police forces. That's the importance of that partnership. And security is important, and it will be there will be different threat levels in different parts of the world. So it can't be a one size fits all. But you know, security is intelligence led. It is based on experience, but it also has to be now an international coalition of partners that will help make a World Championships safe from people that would choose to disrupt them.
You were the pioneering chairman of FIFA Ethics Commission. Joseph Blatter, the outgoing FIFA president, happens to be guest on this program. I put a question to him about his salary, and he told me that he doesn't have a salary. Just how corrupt is FIFA when you look at the investigations of the FBI and the Swiss authorities?
The investigations are underway. The allegations have been made. I'm sure that, to use a show business analogy, this story will run and run. I was FIFA's first ethics committee chair. I had to step down actually quite shortly afterwards because, of course, England were bidding for the World Cup, and it would have been inappropriate.
To avoid conflict of interest?
Yeah, I walked away because I wanted to help.
Now, when you were inside, what did you find wrong with the management of FIFA?
What you've got to remember is our responsibility was to set this up from a standing start, so we really didn't have the opportunity to investigate anything. And actually the role of an ethics committee is not to investigate of its own volition. The role of an ethics committee is to look at accusations and concerns that are sent to them. So that is a question that I'm not really in a position to answer because I wasn't really there long enough. We were just setting up the mechanism for the structure. Okay.
Let me take a question which has to do with coaching in athletics in particular. And you know the problems that the coach of Mo Farah is under pressure now in England. And you said that Alberto Salazar a few days ago should come out and talk. How clean are you to coach others when it comes to morality in this business? What gives you the moral authority to tell others that if they are in difficulties, that they should come clear and say what is wrong?
No, the question I received from a British journalist was a very good one. It was, what do you think of the situation? And I said, allegations have been made. I'm sure that Alberto Salazar will want to respond to those allegations. He has. He's produced a 12,000-word rebuttal over 28 pages. And it's now for the athletes that Alberto Salazar coaches to make a judgment about that coaching relationship. And that is exactly what I said, and I think that's absolutely the right approach. I can't make an observation possibly about a set of circumstances I don't know because I wasn't there. But the rebuttal is over 12,000 words, and it is over 28 pages, and it is very thorough.
Let's conclude the interview, Lord Koo. You have been a member of the British Parliament between 1992 to 1997, on the one hand, and on the other side, you are in a business. The sporting world contributes about $121 billion yearly into the global economy. The British are planning to leave, either to stay or to leave the European Union. As a senior British politician, what will you say for or against membership into the European Union? And on the other side, how much are you going to contribute to increase finances of the sporting industry? You are heading for a presidency, you should be innovative.
I'm not sure I understand the second part of the question. The first part of the question, first of all, I'm not an elected politician anymore.
Sure.
Secondly, the British people will have a referendum. They will decide whether the terms, the treaty changes, the renegotiation that the Prime Minister is currently involved in.
Will you vote for a stay or for a departure?
Will I what?
Will you vote for British continuous membership into the European Union if the referendum was held today?
If the Prime Minister is satisfied that the negotiation that he has made meets the changes that he seeks and the British people are comfortable with, then of course I will vote to remain in the European Union.
Okay, the last part of the question was, what are your plans of innovation to increase the revenue generated by the Athletics Federation?
I think there are two things we need to focus on. One is greater engagement with the private sector. I think we need to make the sponsors that we have currently work harder at different levels of the sport, not just at World Championships. We need to create a commercial team within the IAAF headquarters that can work more closely with our member federations to secure and explore new sources of income from local-based businesses. That will mean really being able to articulate and explain why our sport is so good and what it does. But also to remember that not all the funding and finance and support comes from the private sector. The private sector are not going to build stadiums, they're not going to build infrastructure and venues. They're probably not going to fund coaching programs. So it is very important that the president of the IAAF, whoever that happens to be, is able to work closely alongside the member federations with political leaders. I spent this afternoon with your Prime Minister. We had a very thoughtful discussion about the way sport can help health and education. It can help in security, it can help in providing young people with better opportunities to make good decisions about their lives. And so we are not just appealing to the commercial or the private sector. We need to persuade our political leaders, those politicians that have controls of budgets that can help us, that our sport actually can help them realise their national ambitions, as I said, in health and in education. So those are the core areas. What I also want to do is to reallocate resources from the centre, from the federation, into a more hands-on approach in our member federations. Too many of our member federations, I don't believe any longer have the resources to be able to do the job that we're asking them to do. So we need to create development programs that are not one size fits all. We need to recognise in a continent like Africa of 54 different federations that have very different challenges economically, socially, culturally, sportingly, that we can't just say that what works in Egypt or Algeria or Kenya necessarily works in Cameroon.
Okay.
So these are the sorts of things that I want to do, but it's fundamentally about decentralising our sport and working more closely with the member federations to secure greater levels of funding and programs that meet local need as defined by local people, rather than me sitting as a president in the centre saying, you must do this to run your sport.
Sure. Lord Co, if you are elected, are you going to declare your salary publicly to avoid the confusion in other federations?
It's very simple. There is no salary with my job.
Lord Co, the former chairman of the 2012 London Olympics, the former president of the British Athletics Association, and the pioneer chairman of FIFA's Ethics Commission, plus other titles. Thanks very much for accepting to be guest on GLOBEWATCH.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the interview. Thank you.
You're welcome.